Welcome, LA Progressive readers, friends, family. Again, we have Bill Blum, and we are so happy to have him here today because today Dick and I had some problems with our roof, and we had roofers in the house, and we really didn't catch up on what was going on today with regards to judicial matters and the former president. So Bill is here to give us the rundown. Bill, welcome.
Thank you. Always great to be with you. So today we have some late-breaking developments, really late-breaking developments in the Trump cases. Let's start with Mar-a-Lago and Judge Eileen Cannon, the district court judge who is hearing the documents case. She held a day-long hearing on 2 of 9 motions to dismiss the indictment brought by Trump's attorneys. And she just ruled by way of what I ascertained to be a minute order, just a brief order, denying the motion to dismiss the Espionage Act charges on grounds of vagueness. The Constitution requires that charges and statutes be sufficiently worded with particularity so that people subject to them can understand what kind of conduct is prohibited by the law. And Trump's lawyers argued that the willful retention of national security documents, the particular section of the Espionage Act that's been used in many of the counts in that indictment, is so vague that the indictment has to be dismissed. Well, she recently, and I mean very recently, within the last 20 minutes, denied that motion. Also argued today was a motion to dismiss the entire indictment.
Let's stop on that one. So that was quite a surprise, or at least people were quite nervous that Eileen Cannon would she's shown a lot of favoritism to Trump, and that she might dismiss the whole case. So where does that one go next, do you think?
I'll explain how that one will work, because I read the minute order. The minute order says that the motion raises serious questions, but those questions are better dealt with later down the road in terms of jury instructions. And she implies maybe on appeal. She doesn't want to get ahead of herself, that there might be a conviction. So she's kind of kicking the can down the road, which is basically her overall strategy. She's inexperienced. She's very biased. I don't think she's the sharpest jurist in the country, to say the least, but she knows enough to realize that if she dismissed this case on that ground at this stage, she would be overturned by the 11th Circuit, just as she was twice last year in the pretrial search and seizure phase of the case. So this is a loss for Trump, but it's not a total loss, and it fits in with the overall strategy, which we talked about last time, which was delaying these prosecutions.
Right.
So also argued today was the idea, or the motion brought to dismiss on the basis of the Presidential Records Act, a statute enacted in 1978 in the aftermath of Watergate to clarify that government documents in the possession of the president are public government records and not personal records of the president. Trump, however, flips the Presidential Records Act and says that while he was president, he could convert presidential records into personal records basically just by thinking that they are. And that therefore, everything he did was appropriate under the Presidential Records Act. And moreover, the Presidential Records Act as a civil statute can't be used as a basis for prosecution. Well, there are many problems with that position, among which is that the indictment doesn't charge Trump with violating the Presidential Records Act in a criminal sense at all. It charges him with espionage and and other aspects of obstruction of justice and conspiracy. So during the hearing, Cannon supposedly said that she was highly skeptical of the argument, but she has not yet, as of this moment, issued a ruling on that particular basis. So we're waiting for that. That could come as early as tomorrow. But then there are 7 other motions, I understand. I couldn't list them for you. But it's the tactic of the Trump team to delay these cases from going to trial until after the election, to win the election, and then to kill the federal cases outright. Now, at the same time today, something very, very bad happened in New York. This was the case, the hush money case, which was going to go to trial on March 25th, which is in 11 days from now. Well, it turns out that the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York has recently just turned over, I think, 104,000 pages of discovery of material relevant to the case to both the prosecution headed by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, and to Trump's lawyers, and that much of that material relates to Michael Cohen, who is one of the star witnesses of the prosecution. And Trump had asked for a delay of 90 days to review that material, and in addition to dismiss the indictment as being politically motivated. Today, Alvin Bragg, in a filing with the court, said his office would not oppose a 30-day delay to review this material, and there's going to be another batch released by the U.S. Attorney's Office next week.
Any indication of the size of the second batch?
I don't think the size of the second batch is supposed to be as large as the one that was received today. So in the past, there was 34,000 pages not timely released. Then this week, 73,000 pages, as I understand it, or 70,000 pages. And now there's going to be another tranche of documents released. So you can see that the Judge Juan Morchan, is not going to want to proceed with the case and build into the case an appellate issue that could get a guilty verdict overturned on appeal. So now this case is going to get delayed. It'll be delayed, I would guess, at least 30 days, maybe not the full 90 days. But here you can see what's happening. Let's say it's delayed, for sake of argument, 90 days. Then you get into competing for a trial date with the Jack Smith election subversion case in Washington, D.C., which the Supreme Court's going to hear on April 25th, and probably won't release a decision until the end of June. But then that case would have to be set for trial, assuming that the court doesn't rule that Trump is absolutely immune. So now, would that trial date conflict with the new trial date in Bragg's case? And then go back to the Mar-a-Lago case, where there still is technically a May trial date, which will not take place. Jack Smith is asking for a new date in July. So you can't have Trump being in two courtrooms on trial at the same time, because as a criminal defendant on trial, he has to be present. He doesn't have to be present at all the motion hearings, although he was present today in Florida. So you can see how this is really a mess. And although Trump's lawyers make arguments that on the merits of their contentions seem ridiculous, their real strategy, as I've been writing for a long, long time, is about delay. And in that sense, they're doing a pretty good job on the criminal side. On the civil side, as we've seen, not so much. He's losing big time, to use his verbiage. But criminal accountability is still being pushed over the horizon. And I remember, Sharon, when you and I were on a roundtable panel with Richard Painter, and we were asked, who believes that Trump's going to be indicted? And you were one of the ones who said no. And I was one of the ones who said yes, along with Richard Painter. And Rob, the moderator, said he didn't think so either. Well, the real question should have been, if he gets indicted, will he go to trial? That's the harder one. And of course, Rob didn't anticipate that if he were indicted, it would take us this long to go to trial. So if you're looking for someone to blame for all of this, and there are many different people that you can fault, a lot of my anger goes to Merrick Garland, because Merrick Garland could have named a special prosecutor a lot earlier than he did. And Merrick Garland is in charge of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. And why didn't he turn over this material to Alvin Bragg almost a year ago when Alvin Bragg first requested the material? Do you mean to tell me it took that long, right on the eve of trial? This really sounds awful.
It does. So Merrick Garland, he always came across to me as being a very timid kind of fella. But now, in hearing about the release of these over 100,000 sheets, 100,000 pages of documents, it's almost sounding like somebody's getting paid.
This certainly needs an explanation. It needs a complete explanation as to how it took so long for the Department of Justice to comply with reasonable requests, both from the prosecution and from Trump's lawyers. Now, Trump's lawyers were late in requesting, that's their style, but they have a right to see this material. Who knows what they have on Michael Cohen to impeach him? It could be even more than we know about in the public domain, or it could turn out to be nothing. It could turn out to show that the U.S. Attorney's Office chickened out when they had a chance to indict Donald Trump, along with Michael Cohen, who was convicted, as you remember, federally. So we don't know what's in that material yet. We're going to find out. But so this gets back to another point that we've been talking about. If there's going to be accountability, if we're going to defeat Donald Trump and everything he stands for, it's going to come down to defeating him at the ballot box. And unfortunately, we've got two choices. We've got Joe Biden and we've got Donald Trump. And part of my job is going to be to explain why you cannot elect Donald Trump. And, I'll be reprising my praise for an essay that was written by Professor Adolfo Reed Jr. It was published in 2016, and it was titled "Vote for the Lying Neoliberal Warmonger, Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump," and he explained why. And one of the points he made, and he was citing other people, because he's a professor and he does that. He said, think back to the 1930s in Germany, when the German Communist Party refused to align with the Social Democrats because they said the Social Democrats were corrupt. And one of their leaders, Ernst Thälmann, was just very vigorous in taking this position. We are not going to align with the Social Democrats to defeat Hitler and the Nazis, because Hitler and the Nazis, they're just going to be in power very, very briefly. They're incompetent, and soon it will be our turn. And Reed pointed out in the essay that Thälmann wound up dying in a concentration camp.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't think we're going to be dying in concentration camps. I certainly hope not. But the lesson is that we have to keep Donald Trump out of power. He's becoming more and more authoritarian and fascist as the months go by. And if you think that you're going to get a better deal out of Gaza from Donald Trump, think again, you're not. And that leads me to the last column I wrote about Judge James Ho from the Fifth Circuit. And we can talk about that next time, because that's going to be a big topic. If you think that Donald Trump is done remaking the Supreme Court after having put 3 justices on the panel, you're wrong. Sooner or later, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito are going to retire. They're both getting older. Clarence in particular, he's already 76, not in great health. He's not going to step down while a Democrat is president, but he might just step down for one of his proteges. And that's this guy, James C. Ho, who is one of his former clerks and who's a brilliant right-wing reactionary jurist on the worst circuit in the country, the Fifth Circuit. So stay tuned. There's yet another reason not to put Donald Trump back in the White House.
Well,
So part of what you were just saying for your talking about the court cases today is, we already have a Supreme Court that is massively unpopular for what seems to be pretty partisan decisions. The House of Representatives is a clown show. Donald Trump says the most obnoxious things in the world. And now the Department of Justice is, these seems like comical mistakes. Is it any wonder that the American people have little faith in their government?
No, it's no wonder at all. It's no wonder at all, but it's our job to explain that if you want an alternative, you have to have some concrete plans. And the last thing you want to do is let the far right come in and reshape the government according to their needs and values, because that will undermine your interests much, much more than they've already been undermined. I think that's a lesson that people can understand, but it has to be taught and retaught very patiently. There are people who now are asking the old question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And some of them are saying, no, we're worse off. Really? Think back to 2020, the year 2020. Was that a good year for America? Yeah. I had trouble finding toilet paper.
Yeah.
Demonstrations over George Floyd, and we had a president who was threatening to bring out the army to shoot Americans in the street.
Well, shoot Black Americans, so that is quickly forgotten, just like George Floyd was quickly forgotten.
That's true. That's very true. But think of the economy also. Unemployment skyrocketed to depression era levels, not recession era levels in 2020. We have short memories as a people. We're a TikTok generation, I guess. So it's
in listening to the hardcore Trump supporters, the real Trumpsters, they don't seem to operate with logic at all. There's no argument you could say. You could say it's so much better, the economy is so much stronger, more people at work, and it washes right over them. The people that I think we have to focus on are young people who are not yet brought up into any excitement around Biden, but need to be, at least to get him elected.
Well, I don't think it's the excitement around Biden that's going to be our salvation. Our salvation is offering them something that works.
Yeah.
Now, we just got to get Biden in there, and just to get him in there so that Trump is not in there. But we really need to do two things. One, convince the American public that civics goes beyond voting, that they really need to get involved in their government. They need to understand how their elected representatives are actually representing them or are not representing them by knowing how they vote. We also need to provide them with ways that they can physically get engaged and do something. And generally what we tend to do in the LA Progressive, and we're very grateful for writers like Bill Blum and so many others, is we point out ways where we need to improve, but we rarely teach them, and partly because we don't know ourselves, what can we actually do? And I would like for us to think more along those lines for the future.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, so I think that the Biden campaign needs to come forth with a bold promise of something they'll do, like Medicare for all, or complete the job of forgiving student loans, something that people can rally around. I mean, the talk is about the infrastructure bill, which is no doubt terribly important, but I don't think it energizes anybody.
I think he's starting to make a lot of promises now, and the job of people on the left is to force him to make those promises, and then to hold him accountable if he gets back into office. We realize that he's in many ways going to be a placeholder. He's 81 now, will be 86 when he leaves office. But there'll be so many more possibilities under a second Biden administration than under a second Trump administration. Yeah. It's almost hard to comprehend how bad things could get with changing the civil service, that is making all 50,000 new appointments who are loyal to Donald Trump. The limits that will be placed on the media, there might even be limits placed on the right to travel. Getting a passport. You might have to swear allegiance to the president to get out of the country.
Ooh.
How bad it could get. He wants to be Viktor Orban.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for another uplifting and bright and optimistic conversation. We're looking forward to more.
Yeah, we look forward to the next time talking about the article that you mentioned about
Yeah.
originalism, this James Ho, and really what Trump will continue to do to the Supreme Court. I mean, he's already wrecked it, but he could wreck it forever if he got back in.
That's right. With young people, fresh blood.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, Bill. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.
See you then.
So long.
Thank you for sticking around. If you like the LA Progressive content and the discussions we have here, please consider clicking the subscribe button below and also give us a thumbs up. That helps to grow our audience by feeding the algorithm, which helps to get this content in front of more eyes. Thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate your support.